Good morning, Disney fans! Hey, this is not a test. This is the truth. Time to rocket from California down to New York. Is this me or does that sound like an Elvis Presley move? No, I'm just kidding, folks. I know that's the intro to Good Morning Vietnam. I just wanted to put my own spin on it. But how are you doing, folks? It is another podcast. We are back at it again with another truth behind the magic. It's dangerous, be kind of scary, kind of shocking. But it's like I said, it's good knowledge, it's the truth, and the truth will set you free, as we know. So that is good. That is good advice that I can give there. And like I say, as everybody knows, or if you're new to the channel, my name is Blaze. I'm joined by my co-host Jason. And like I say, we talk about all things Disney college program associated, stuff like that. So that's what we do. And on this particular episode, we are talking about the different roles you can have when you get assigned to the program. And we can talk about our knowledge and tips for each one, and ones that we don't know about, we just we don't really know much. We have to default to somebody else we knew on the program or one of our roommates that did it. But yeah, but for the program, for the roles we did specifically, which is quick service, stuff like that, it'll have its own separate video. But this video, we're just kind of going down the list of each role you can get, kind of giving the pros and the cons of it, and going from there. And with that, I will pass it to my good buddy Jason. Go ahead, man. Hit it.
Yep, thank you. So, yeah, this video is going to be quite interesting because we're pretty much going into this blind. Like, we didn't read the list or anything. Well, I glanced over it, and a couple of them that I saw, I haven't heard of anyone getting that role in a long time. Like, a couple of them I thought they had gotten rid of for the college program, but maybe they brought them back, because I have the official website up, and we're just going to go through every role and kind of what we've heard about it, what we know. Even though a lot of these we haven't actually worked, you get to learn a lot just from working amongst people. Just talking to people that you know, hearing things throughout the program, and especially like Bell Services, a role that I did last year. You learn a lot about the other resort roles just from working for in that scenario. Same with the parks, kind of. You learn about the other park roles just from working in a park. So now some of these we will have extended videos on where we really go into detail because they're roles that we did. But for other ones, we'll just tell you what we know, kind of what the buzz is on the street about them, and that sort of thing. So I'll just get started going right from the beginning here. The first tab is food and beverage. The first role is Cedar. And I will say, last program I had a roommate that was a Cedar. If you get that role, pretty much thank your lucky stars, because it's basically quick service light. Like, it's not quick service, but you pretty much, you literally are a Cedar. You may have to handle some dishes and stuff sometimes, but I would say it wouldn't be a role that I would want to do, but it is a role that is one of the easier roles on the program, just to put it bluntly. Definitely not bad, and you get to work at the nicest restaurants on property too. It's typically the resort table service. I'm sure you can get that role in the parks, but I believe it's mostly that most of those restaurants are at the resorts. But other than that, that's one that I don't know a ton about, but like I said, it's definitely one of the roles that is one of the more chill roles.
Right, yeah, definitely. We had a roommate during my program he was a Cedar, and yeah, unlike food service itself, where you're going to be doing all kinds, it's basically working in an actual restaurant, so you're going to be, bussing tables or cleaning the dishes or preparing food or stuff like that, or taking the food out and serving it to guests. handling money, depending if you work a register. I mean, all those things that you would think about doing is basically, in a nutshell, what you'll be doing with food and beverage versus just, if you're just a seater, you're not going to get as dirty, you're not going to get as banged up. It's still a very tough job because you're still dealing with guests if they're, because some can be very rude, no matter what position you have. And the best thing to do is just don't try to get upset or lose your cool. The best thing is just to stay calm, just get through the get through the next guest and kind of go on from there. Because if you dwindle on the one, it can definitely mess up your day, and you might even think about doing something else. But yeah, it's definitely a interesting position to have as the greeter / seater.
So next on the list, which is the second role in the food and beverage category, is one that we know very well, all too well for that matter, which is quick service food and beverage. And this is one that we will have a long, detailed video about because we have plenty to talk about this role. But just kind of a rapid fire thing here, I guess what I would say about it. So it's the number one role that you can get on the program, at least from all metrics that I've seen. I don't think they've put out an official count, but just from polls on like Facebook groups and what you see people saying, that kind of thing. Quick service is number one. Number two is attractions. 3, they say, is merchandise, but honestly, it could be custodial. And then it kind of drops off sharply after that. But yeah, quick service. If you get a slow location at a resort, or maybe even there are some locations in the parks that aren't that bad, it can be kind of a chill work environment, but for the most part, you are going to be nose to the grindstone, working fast. Efficiency is pretty much the number one key. That is what they are going to care about. I know they say safety is the number one key, but definitely in quick service, I feel like efficiency is really number one. But yeah, I mean, it's literally in the name, quick service. You're going to be handling food. You may have to work a register. I was not a fan of working the register, which luckily I really didn't have to. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Any role can go well for you, though, as long as you have a good group around you and you just try to have a good experience with it. But that's pretty much quick service in a nutshell.
Right. Yeah, no, you nailed it.
Yeah, there might also be other pieces to it, like taking out the trash, that kind of thing. But other than that, it's going to come down to really a location by location basis. And that is actually the last role they have under food and beverage. I don't know if they still do outdoor vending. Maybe it's not listed as food and beverage. We'll find out eventually. So the next category is retail and sales, which, like I said, merchandise is one of like the big 3 or big 4 roles. The first one on here, I'm surprised they even have this listed, is the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. That is one role that I know literally 0% about, except for the fact that you see a lot of people that's their number one role that they would want to get. Just pretty much doing makeovers and stuff for kids. But that's another role that has to be like a very chill role to have.
Yeah. I don't know anybody that did it. I just know based on my general knowledge of it, which is basically the boutiques for, if you have a guest and they want to look like Cinderella or Snow White or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Not even just kids. They'll do kids, adults, maybe not with kids. They'll do the whole like dress and everything like that. With adults, I think it's just their face or whatever, or the makeup or whatever the case may be. But yeah, basically that's all the role is you're giving out different makeup outfits and stuff like that to the guests for their enjoyment, so they can feel like they look just like their favorite princess or whatever the case may be, and that's basically the whole role. I mean, and, it sounds like a pretty chill one to have. So, yeah, that's definitely one. If you're really into artsy and good with that, that'd definitely be the role for you. Sure.
Yep, and number 2 in the retail category is, of course, merchandise. I never had to do merchandise, but at my quick service location, we sold some things that were more merchandisey. I mean, they weren't like quick service. It was more like what you would find in a gift shop, candy, that kind of thing. We had the refillable mugs, like the resort mugs. So I kind of have some experience in a similar environment, but it is quite literally merchandising. You'll be running a register a good bit of the time, stocking. You see the people walking around the floor a lot. I don't know if that's like a specific role where you just kind of look around, see if there's anything suspicious going on. Or not specific role, I shouldn't say, a specific position within the role where you just kind of walk around the floor. But that one, from what I've heard, people tend to enjoy it, especially depending on the location. I've heard that World of Disney is pretty rough, just in general. Like, it's one of the more rough locations on the program. But other than that, it has always seemed to me like a role that really would not be that bad to get.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, like Jason just said, it just depends on the location. Like, if it's like merchandising at Magic Kingdom, you're in that giant merchandising store. It basically goes an entire block, city block. I mean, that one can get pretty rough from what I've seen and from what I've heard. It's just because you got to remember, you have to make sure if a guest has a question about a price or their discount or whatever the case may be, you have to make sure you can answer it as quickly as possible so that you can move on to the next one. Stocking, you're restocking the product, stuff like that. You're making sure you're not putting stuff out there that shouldn't be if it's not time or season for it, whatever the case may be. So it's pretty cut and dry, straightforward, and it can be enjoyable because you get to see people from all walks of life. Now, you might see the occasional fight go on if there's the last of something. I think Disney makes sure that there's plenty in the back so that doesn't happen. I've only heard a story of it happening once, but it can happen, especially with the heat in Florida. So just keep that in mind. If you know that there's only one thing out there, probably should restock it so you don't have like a Black Friday situation where it's the last thing of that particular item and everybody wants it. So definitely good to do that. Or you just say, hey, this is the last of something, and then I think they even let them put it in the back. So they just say, if a guest, so a fight doesn't happen, they're just like, oh, we're out, So, and then that way, that also prevents the potential of someone fighting a little kid over, or adult fighting a little kid over it, or whatever the case may be. So, definitely something to keep in mind as well with that role. And with that, we'll just kind of move on to the next one. Is that one, I guess, a pretty cut and dry role?
Yep. So next on the list, and the last in the retail category, is vacation planner. And vacation planner, I will say, is actually very different than what the name sounds like. I have seen some videos and heard some about this role. You work at like the ticket booths outside the parks. There might be some other locations too. I don't know if they may have a few people in Disney Springs selling tickets, although they may have completely dropped that in the past few years. But yeah, that's pretty much it with that role. As far as I know, I'm sure there are intricacies to it, but just know you're not like one of the Disney Vacation Club planner people or something like that. You're working at one of the ticket booths and pretty much selling people tickets or doing like the redemption, the roll call, whatever it is, when they, or I forget what it's called, will call, when they show up for the day of and they need to actually get the ticket. But that's pretty much all I know about that role.
Right. Yeah. As far as I know, yeah, it's not like you're the hotline. You don't have to be nervous about doing the whole Disney spiel about, hey, I'm going to be your vacation planner today. No, you don't have to do any of that. It's basically just you're at the park. You're out there at the entrance of the park. You're making sure that if they have a family or if they need to buy more tickets or if they're having trouble with their magic band or something like that, that's what basically you're there for. You're there to make sure that they can enter the park without a problem, and so it's makes it more enjoyable for the guests and less hassle for everybody. So yeah, that's basically what that role is in a nutshell. So and yeah, I guess we'll move on to the next one from there. Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we are moving on to the operations side of things, which this looks like it's the largest category overall. Which is mostly in the parks, but also some other things outside of the parks with this role or this category. Number one, which is another one that we'll definitely make a separate video about, is attractions. And I have worked attractions. I worked at Toy Story Mania for a program, but we've also known a lot of people in attractions. I know one of our roommates, he was attractions, but he did not even work on a ride at all, or even in a ride area. He was basically parade control, because attractions is a role that covers a wide area. Yes, you can work at rides. You can also work, like I said, just kind of parade and area control. Surprisingly, they even made it now to where the people who work in the toll booths, I think they're attractions too, which I don't really understand. I'm pretty sure that used to be a part of parking, but I believe now it is completely a part of attractions. But yeah, attractions, it's a lot of people's first thing on their list when it comes to the college program. People want to work at Pirates. They want to work at Haunted Mansion. Honestly, after doing it, I'd want to work at, like, Living with the Land. Something like that would be so chill. It would just have to be. You do have the water hazard, though, so that kind of throws in some different things. But yeah, definitely, like, the quintessential role of the program.
Yeah. And with attractions, yeah. In fact, when I first even got there, they're like, attractions, now you can be in the parks working a ride or parade control or whatever the case may be, or fireworks display, something like that. But you could even, like Jason said, they literally could have you out in the parking lot directing people where to park. Like, that's also technically a part of attractions. So, if you do get that, like, don't get your hopes up. It's just one of those, it's just the luck of the draw kind of thing with attractions. You might even get something as fun as, because attraction for Magic Kingdom anyway, it's a fun fact, the trains that go around the park is actually also a part of attractions. Now, you don't need any special, like, engineering license or anything like that. They do all the training with you if you do get that role, but it's definitely something you could be a part of, and that's like almost a thing. I know Walt loved the train aspect of it, so yeah, definitely, if you really love Disney and all things Disney, that'd be like the best role for that. And then there's another role probably come up later on in like attractions. That's like attractions, but it's a little different. But I know Jason will probably talk about it here in a sec, so we'll get right into it.
So next on the list is honestly a pretty unusual one. Convention guide. I actually know someone, a friend of mine, just switched to convention guide at Epcot. But this is another role where it's not really what it sounds like, because I worked at the biggest convention resort on property at Coronado Springs in Bell Services in 2023. My alumni program was there. The people who work those conventions are not convention guides, at least from what I know. It sounds counterintuitive, but the convention guides are the people who work, like, the concerts at Epcot, that kind of thing. I believe they can work at some of the after hours parties and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's similar to, like I said, with attractions just a second ago, where it's kind of like a crowd control sort of thing. Guest service is also thrown in there a bit. But yeah, that's a very unusual role. I've not seen many people get that at all.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody that got it. So I have no idea how it would go. But, yeah, it just seems like one of those easy roles to, that you could do no problem. But yeah, no, the role, the quintessential role, obviously you want to be is a character performer and a character attendant, and we'll talk about those here in just a minute. But yeah, those are like, if you really, really love Disney, that's huge, because as you know, you always wanted to, if you dreamed of being a character, there's that, and we'll probably get more into it as we actually get to the role. But yeah, that's just, again, my thing there is like, yeah, if you really love Disney, you really want to be a part of it, that's a very competitive role to be a part of.
Yep, it is certainly one of the most sought after roles from what I have seen. So next on the list is Custodial. And this is one that you really hear a lot of opinions about. I had a roommate last program who was Magic Kingdom Custodial. It was pretty rough from what I heard. But if you got certain shifts, they were not bad. Because there's a lot of things you can do there, taking out the trash, cleaning bathrooms, cleaning up after the parades. That was the shift that, like, most people loved. But you hear people that really love Custodial. Especially Resort Custodial. Some people really like, because you have a lot of freedom in that position, and it's not nearly as busy as Park Custodial from what I've heard. In fact, Blaze's first roommate was Custodial, and he kind of abandoned ship on that job because he got switched to a different park. But yeah, Custodial,
right?
It can be a good experience. It can be a bad experience. That you can say that about almost any role on the program, though, honestly.
Yeah. And I mean, with Custodial, you're going to be again, it's the costume that you can walk in any point, anytime. There's no restrictions or anything like that. No matter what park you're in, Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Epcot, it doesn't matter. You don't have to wear something specific. Or it's completely neutral at all times. But I will say that, yeah, being a Custodial, you do have to cover, if you're working a park, you might have to cover a wide area, and you have to make sure all the trash is out of the trash cans. Maybe a bathroom or two needs to be cleaned periodically, stuff like that. Just making sure all that stuff is tight for the guests, and that's basically that role. And like I said, you can have fun. I think they some guests even give tips to Custodial if they've helped them out, like one of their guests, fellow guests is thrown up or something like that. They need help cleaning it up, whatever the case may be. Another thing about the Custodial role that's cool is if you have the training for it, you can actually make the water Mickeys and water characters while you're working, so people come over and watch. You can have a good time with it. So it can be a very interesting role, and I know Disney, each Custodial has a different role. I think even Tokyo Disney, they have like a lamppost that they pretend to play like it's a musical instrument. They have two dusters, and they're basically just playing it and having a good time, like it's steel drums in a way. So yeah, it's just a way that each Custodial is different throughout the different Disney parks. And but it can be exciting, it can be interesting. You can see a lot of stuff. I mean, my first roommate, he saw all kinds of stuff. He saw obviously the normal Custodial things you'll see, but then he also saw some crazy stuff, like these two people beat each other literally out of the park, and they were brother and sister. That's crazy. Two grown people fighting. he said there was a blood trail. He had to clean it up. Like, it's a mess. Then there was one time where he literally saw a bag and it was full of, money and stuff like that. And what happened was someone, I guess, had stolen all this stuff, gotten into the park, and they were trying to escape, and they forgot it or they left it or something like that. So he had to report it to his manager. Proper authority handled the person, but it's just stuff like that. So you never really know with Custodial. You're kind of a bag of tricks, really. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yep, and it's really a guest service centric role. And I know they say that like everyone at Disney is a guest service cast member or whatever that saying is, but in Custodial, you are the first person that a lot of people will ask questions. So get ready to talk to a lot of people on that role. So after that, this is one that I haven't heard anyone getting in quite a while, but I guess it still is around. It's Monorail. Now, I will say, if you get Monorail as your role, as far as I know, it's not actually driving the monorail. Now, if you're there a long time, like, I don't know if you can actually get that on your program. Maybe if you're there like 10 months or something. But for the most part, you're just, standing in front of the gates, opening the gates, helping people get on. It's basically like working an attraction. I mean, it literally is an attraction. I'm surprised they don't have that listed as an attractions role if they're going to have the toll booths listed as one. That's very strange, but yeah, pretty much just helping people get on and off the monorail, maybe using the intercom, that kind of thing, is essentially what that role sounds like it's made up of.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, if it would just depend, maybe if you got enough training, or if you did like the program for a year and a month, maybe towards the end of your program, they'd let you drive it under supervision, of course. But basically, the monorail is what it sounds like. You have a monorail costume, and you're basically, your goal is just to make sure people board it safely, unboard it safely. If the guest needs services with a wheelchair or something like that, or stroller, you bring a ramp over to that particular part of the monorail and help them get down and stuff like that. Make sure everybody's safe, and that's basically that. So and you control the gates to open and close, to let the guests on. But other than that, that's basically it for that role. With that, we'll move on to the next one.
So after that comes Photopass. This is another one that a lot of people really want. And it is one of the roles that I think they do look at your prior experience to try to find people who actually would fit into this role. One of my roommates' last program, he was Photopass at Hollywood Studios. There's more to it than just taking pictures. You have to work at like the Photopass centers. Each park has one. People at the end of the day especially will come in there, and that's where they get their pictures, that kind of thing. They'll ask for help. Obviously, you take pictures a lot of the time. You'll figure out where you're going that day, like what area you're servicing. I believe there's also positions where you're just going around helping other Photopass people, asking if they need water, that kind of thing. I would say my biggest kind of warning about it is that you will be standing out in the sun for extended periods of time. Oftentimes there's not really any shade for you. But I know that my roommate loved doing it, so if you're someone that really loves taking pictures, you probably will enjoy this role, almost certainly.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a role that you can have a lot of fun with, make a lot of magical moments, like if someone does a surprise engagement, or it's somebody's birthday, or something like that. It can definitely be one of those roles, but it's also one of those roles you have to keep in mind, if they have the Disney app, you can, if you're just out and about, and you're not a specific ride area or something like that, then you have to make sure that the photos get to the right guest and stuff like that. So it's very important to keep those kinds of things in mind when doing that role. I mean, it's good if you're really good at taking pictures. That's one part of it, but another part of it is again making sure that it gets to the right guest and that they have just a great time with the photo and be like, man, that's a really great photo. It brings back so many memories. That's kind of the goal of that role to have if you can get it.
Next on the list is Watercraft, which this is another one that you rarely ever see people get. And I believe they do look at what your background is. They want to make sure that it is only people who can actually drive those kind of vehicles. I mean, that might be wrong. They might bring in people that have no experience, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they look for people that have had experience driving watercraft. And that can be either French Quarter in Port Orleans to Disney Springs and Saratoga Springs, that kind of loop. It could be Epcot, between Epcot and Hollywood Studios, the boardwalk. That's another route. I think Watercraft are also the people that assist with the Magic Kingdom ferry boats. I don't know if you actually get to drive those on a college program, but you can work on those. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Watercraft. I mean, it's Watercraft. I think a lot of the time you're working on the docks and not actually driving the craft, though. In fact, I'm not even completely sure if you get to operate them on the college program. It's sort of like the monorail thing where if you're there long enough, you might get to.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely one of those roles that, you get to experience and stuff like that. And I don't think it's a role. It might be a role that comes up, but one thing you will get to do on the college program if you work at Animal Kingdom, it's not Watercraft necessarily, but you will actually get to drive the giant safari trucks. So yeah, and you give tours and stuff like that on the safari there. So that is definitely something to keep in mind if you really, if that's a role you really want to pursue. I think that's just specifically for Animal Kingdom. But yeah, if you're thinking, man, I really want to drive something when I'm down there, then that would be the role for you. And yeah, they basically, you're also the tour guide. So, you got to keep that in mind and make sure you, point out stuff that maybe the guests can't see or like, hey, normally this is where the alligators would be, but because they're not here, we're just going to drive through it real quick. But stuff like that, just to make sure that, they have a good time. And yeah, and it's definitely a role you can have fun in for sure.
Indeed. Actually, I don't even think they have Safari Driver listed on this official Disney sites. They might consider it like attractions or something, but it's definitely one that you have to have an additional set of criteria that you have met to be able to do that. I have actually known, or at least vicariously known, a couple of people who have done that role. I wouldn't want to do it just because you literally do have to drive a massive vehicle with a bunch of people on it, but it could be fun though.
Yeah.
So the next on the list is the Skyliner. Once again, I would say very similar to Monorail. I'm kind of surprised it's not just considered attractions. Because you effectively are working an attraction. You wait till the vehicle pulls up, it opens, you guide the people on. I'm not sure how many positions there are there. I don't think it can be a lot. There's probably like an exit ramp position, entrance ramp, a few people actually working the vehicle itself, like loading people. That would probably be a pretty interesting position, although I don't think you really have a chance to talk to any other cast members on the job, because from what I've seen, your positions are pretty much just solitary positions. But that could be another one that might not be that bad. I don't know all that much about the actual operation of it. The only thing I know is that the first week it opened, they were working the people like 70 hours a week for like the first month or whatever. But Other than that, it doesn't seem like it would be that bad, at least to me personally.
Yeah, it doesn't. And fun fact, yeah, I don't think it'd be a bad role either. But yeah, Jason and I were on the program, our first program when the Skyliner initially opened, and yeah, it was just this huge deal. You know, now you could go from Hollywood Studios to Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios to Epcot and stuff like that. It was this revelational thing that you could do, and you could be way above, you know, be way high above. The only thing that sucks about it, I would just say, just about the Skyliner in general, sometimes it does stop, and sometimes you are just above the highway or whatever. So, you know, you gotta keep that in mind. If you're claustrophobic, you're like, I gotta get out of here, don't get on it. Like, you know, because there is a possibility of that happening. But other than that, you know, it is a fun ride. You know, it gives you a chance to relax, and yeah, you do get to see a lot of cool and interesting places. Like I say, you go from, I think it's Hollywood Studios to the Caribbean Resorts Hub, and then you can either go right, and if you take the Skyliner right, you will get to, I think this 70s, 80s, 90s hotel and another resort over there. And then if you go to the left, you will go to Epcot. So definitely, now the Epcot Skyliner is a little longer ride, but it still is fun, and you get a chance to see Disney from above. So definitely a fun experience. But it also might be an interesting role. I mean, like I said, I don't know how much on it experience. It still does seem like a fun role to have.
Yep, the only thing with that is you would be only working outside, as far as I know. But no, definitely just as an experience, something that you should definitely go do because it's completely free. And do the whole loop too. Like, start at Epcot, go to Hollywood Studios, get back on it. You know, go look around Caribbean Beach or the Riviera. Go to Pop Century and Art of Animation. I was there a few weeks ago. We went on the Skyliner. We went to the Art of Animation arcade, and they have a really nice arcade there. Like, it's one of the best ones I've seen. Which the value resorts typically do have the best arcades, although that resort really isn't even value prices anymore. But that's a completely different discussion. But yeah, the arcades are actually surprisingly fun on Disney property, I will say that. All right, so next on the list, we are moving to another category, recreation. I don't know too much about any of the roles that are listed in this, in all honesty. The first is children's activities. And there's some crossover between this and recreational activities, which is something we'll talk about in a second. Because I'm not sure exactly which ones do which when it comes to certain activities, but I know for children's activities, if you see like kids watching a movie, drawing something, painting something, it's that kind of thing. You have a very like specific costume. It's I would say one of the more iconic Disney costumes. If you're someone who likes children, then I'm sure it's a role you would enjoy. If you're not someone that enjoys being around them at all, then definitely you would hate it. But once again, it's a role that a lot of people really want to get, and it probably is a completely fine role. I wouldn't want to do it, but
Yeah, I get you. No, yeah, like I say, as far as my knowledge of it goes, yeah, it's a role that, yeah, yours basically, it's kind of like daycare, like, you know, if they're basically from 3 up till probably like maybe 8 or 9, maybe 10's the cutoff, I'm not sure. But yeah, you're hanging out with them, you're making sure they get something to eat, they have a good time, maybe the parents are out at the park or just exploring Orlando, whatever the case may be. It gives them an option, you know, to relax and unwind, and, you know, you get to have fun with the kids. And then, you know, when they get picked up, you know, they have a good time, and they usually come back. You usually will see, you know, if you're at a specific resort, you'll probably see them for a week or so, or maybe just for a few days out of their full stay. But yeah, it's definitely something that you can have fun with. You might read stories, play music like on a drum or something, and have them dance around, stuff like that. I know with Animal Kingdom, that's how it was. Um, they would have the cast member who was in charge of children's activities, playing certain drum beats, and the kids would dance around in certain ways and stuff like that. So it's definitely a role that can be fun if you really do it.
Yep. So the next on the list, this has to be the most straightforward, just cut and dry, most simple to explain role of any of the roles on the college program, and that is lifeguard. And all I will say about lifeguard is that in the lifeguard role, you are a lifeguard. That's the description of the role. There it is.
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's actually a YouTuber. His name is Swoozy. He actually did lifeguarding. I watched his video about it. So if you want to learn about that role through that, that's a shout out to him and his video. I know he did it a few years ago, but that was what he did. He did lifeguarding. So that's something. But yeah, that's literally just not much to it.
Yep, if you are someone who enjoys swimming, it might be a good role for you. Other than that, I don't think you'll be wanting to do that. So the last in this category is the recreation attractions, which, like I said, is somewhat similar to the children's activities. Although I believe these people are more so the ones that, like, if you're renting a boat at the Contemporary or renting one of the Surrey bikes at Port Orleans or something along those lines, it's going to be a recreations attractions person. That's another role that it just seems like it would be very chill. In fact, I'm not sure if the Fantasia Gardens mini golf or just any of the mini golf is considered recreation attractions. It might be. It might be considered its own role. I'm not sure if you can work there on the program, but I think you can. But other than that, it seems just like a very laid-back role, although you will be like outside or in a small kind of hut-like building for a lot of the time.
Yeah. And what's good is that, and I think maybe if they like ask for a caddy or something with like the actual golf courses, then you might have to do that, and like drive people around in a golf cart or something like that. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, you'll probably get like mini golfing, or if they have like water, like a little lake. I think they have a little lake that you can have like water stuff with, like water bikes and stuff like that. So, you'll be doing stuff like that basically, in charge of that. But yeah, other than that, again, pretty straightforward, cut and dry. It can be fun, especially if you enjoy the people you work with and you enjoy being that kind of job. So that's just a way to do it, really. And like I say, we're just going off one after the other, and with that, we'll get on to the next one. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. So we only have a couple categories left, and now we're coming into entertainment, which obviously this is a very serious category for a lot of people. They really want to be a character performer or someone in a stage show, something along those lines. And the first in this category is character attendant, which I will just let Blaze talk about this because I know this is right up his wheelhouse. So this is something he knows a lot about.
Yeah, so being a character attendant, ironically enough, if you do get the character performer role, you might actually also, you basically, it's a 2-for-1. If you're good enough as a character, then you don't want to, they want to make sure they don't overwork you in that character. So you might, for a day, be a character attendant instead. And a character attendant is basically someone who makes sure the character is taken care of. The character needs to be where they're supposed to be at a specific time, place, stuff like that. They make sure that the character isn't over rushed or anything like that. They're just not like bogged over, like, oh my gosh, it's Mickey. And then there's like, people running them over. No. They make sure that, that kind of stuff is in check. They'll take photos for the guests if need be. They'll make sure that the guests have a good time with the character, making sure that, no kind of crazy things are said or stuff like that, or, they don't do anything insulting or do anything like physical harm or anything like that to the specific character. But yeah, they're basically there to make sure that the character is safe, protected, and that the guests also can meet maybe their hero if need be, if it is specifically a character that is that, like Winnie the Pooh or Mickey Mouse or somebody like that, and they can also are basically there to make sure, hey, you got to go to lunch now, or hey, it's they might have a code word for taking them to a different area of the park because maybe there's a parade going on and that character's in the parade as well, and you can't be like, hey, there's two Mickey. Can't have that. So that's that's one of the Disney's main rules is one Mickey or one Minnie and one Goofy, et cetera, even though there might be 3 or 4 out at the same time, there's really only one. So that's just one of the things you have to make sure you do, and as a character attendant, that is imperative that you make sure that those things are met so that, like I say, the guests don't lose their love of that character and it doesn't feel like it's a just, monopolized thing or just a cut, a sugar cookie cut kind of thing. It's like literally specifically made for that person, for that guest. It makes the guest feel like, wow, the character's here specifically for me and stuff like that. So that's basically the role of a character attendant. It is an awesome role. You definitely have a lot of fun.
And following up character attendant is, of course, character performer, which, once again, very much sought after role, but only specific people will actually want to do this if there's someone who is in, maybe a theater major, people who actually like to perform, want to portray a character. There's probably quite a few stories I could tell relating to this, but most of them would probably break some kind of character integrity, so I won't go into detail on that. But, yeah, it's pretty much like it says, you get to portray a character, whether that be a face character where they're not in a costume or a costume character. And I will say, if you're around some of these people, from what I've heard and seen, some of them kind of have a chip on their shoulder or something. They think they're above a lot of the other people on the program. So if you do get this role, don't be one of those people.
Right. Another thing about it is, too, it's just like if you wanted to... So if you want to be a character performer, it's not just like, oh, I could be a character performer. Okay, you're in. No. You do have to audition for it. You have to, in fact, you can do it on the program, but you have to audition for it first from your specific state. There might be or even region of the country. You have to meet a specific state, specific time if you want to audition for that role. And then you get auditioned again at Disney World and Disneyland to make sure that you're going to fit that role. I actually knew a cast member who she really wanted to do it. But literally, they're very nitpicky. She was just an inch, and I don't mean an inch being too tall to play the Mickey, Minnie level characters. I think you have to be 5 foot and below, and I think, or maybe it was even 4 foot something, and she was 4. I think she was. I think she had to be 4'10". I think she was 4'11" or 4'12". Literally, an inch or two can make or break your chances of being a character performer. And as you know, and you'll find out if you do become one, you cannot tell people who you play. You have to be my best friends are Mickey and Minnie, Goofy and Donald. Something like that. My best friends are Goofy and Donald. stuff like that. Like you have to make sure, that is the line that they will have you rehearse and rehearse, because you're not allowed to tell people who you are, because if you do, then, they feel like you'll be kind of hunted down by guests or cast members that work there. Like, hey, so-and-so works this character and they are at this place at this time. They want to make sure it's, again, everybody has a unique experience with the character in their own kind of way. They just don't want somebody to hog that character. So that's why they do that. Also, as a character performer, you will be required to practice. Like, let's say you actually get the role of one of the Fab Five. You have to practice how to write their names in cursive and print. And you're trained on that, and it's not like you get to take off the gloves and do it. No, you have to do it with the gloves on, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's a role that, again, a lot of people love, a lot of people sought after.
So the last on the entertainment roles, and one that I'm surprised they consider entertainment, is costuming. And this is another role that is pretty unusual. You're not very likely to get this, but pretty much you work in one of the costuming locations. You have to do laundry, taking care of the inventory of the clothes, that kind of thing. Honestly, for certain people, it might be a totally fine experience. You get literally no guest interaction, though. And there may be like 2 or 3 other college program people that even work at your location. If that, you might be the only one. I'm not sure how that all plays out. But yeah, definitely not one that I know that much about, but I'd say it's pretty straightforward. So the last category here, last few roles, is lodging. And this was initially what I wanted to get into and have really always wanted to get into, but didn't actually get a role here until my very last program, which ironically, I'm looking at the website right now. The picture they have here is someone working front desk at Coronado, which is where I worked. And in fact, the first role is Bell Services Dispatcher / Greeter. Some locations don't have a greeter. It's just Bell Services Dispatcher. We had a greeter, but it was like his own role. It was basically just him. Like, we didn't do that. At some locations you will get scheduled an actual greeter shift. If you're someone who's into hospitality, this should be like near the top of your list. I did a couple videos on this channel where I talked for like an hour and a half about this role in particular. So definitely, if you want to know more about that, you can go watch those. I went over pretty much the whole thing with it. But yeah, it's not being a bellman, even though it sounds like it. You pretty much like, you're not above the bellman, but you're like in charge of the bellman. You tell them, you put in a work order when someone needs luggage taken or whatever, they go get it. You do have to handle luggage. If people are storing it in the back, you'll take it and give them a ticket and you'll put it back there. You have to do luggage transfers, which is taking the luggage to the other resorts on property. That was my favorite thing to do. But other than that, it's definitely a chill role. You don't get as much guest interaction as other roles, but I love doing it. Like, I love just being in the transfer van and handling people's luggage. It was awesome. So that's pretty much all I have about that role, other than, like I said, suggesting going and watching a couple videos that I did about it. After that is club level lounge, and that we didn't work with them a lot, but sometimes we'd have to interact with them in Bell Services. You work in the concierge lounge at whatever resort you're at, and you're in charge of like food and beverage up there, restocking stuff, helping with guest services, that kind of thing. If someone needed their luggage brought up from there or brought up to the lounge or something, it would be one of those cast members that would call us to go do that. But once again, that's another role that honestly is very, I would say, very desirable from what I've heard. It sounds pretty good compared to most of the roles on property. The next is Resort Concierge, which I don't know why they just call it Concierge now. That's front desk. Like, it used to be called Front Desk Concierge. I would say it's more front desk than actual concierge. Um, but you're in charge of checking people in, helping them with any questions they might have about the resort, uh, assisting them in a myriad of other ways, operating like whatever system the resort uses. I had to use a few of the systems in Bell Services Dispatcher, but the weird thing about concierge is you do have an extended training period. I think it's 3 or 4 weeks, which is why I know for the shorter programs, like the alumni programs and stuff, I don't even think you can get concierge. But once again, if you're someone that likes hospitality, I think that is a role that you should attempt to get, or at least put high on your list. And the final thing on the list is a role that was probably at the very bottom of my entire roles that I've ever wanted to do, and that is housekeeping. It honestly, if you're someone that likes being kind of solitary and just kind of working at your own, not at your own pace, but necessarily, but just kind of on your own accord, you might actually like it. But if you're someone that wants guest interaction, no. For me personally, I don't want to handle people's stuff or be around people's stuff. I feel like it's a big liability. So that's why I never wanted to do it. I remember, I think it was the program when I came back in 2022, a lot of people were getting housekeeping. I don't know why. But it might even be one of the ones now that they offer a little bit of a premium. Like, you get paid 50 cents more or 75 cents more an hour. Like some of the other weird roles and locations are, but yeah, pretty straightforward. I mean, you're just a house person, so that's that as far as that role. Yeah, that'll just about do it. If you sat through this whole video, we certainly appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you'll continue watching this series with us. For some of these, we will have detailed videos. Like I said, the Bell Service one is already out there, but we hope this just kind of gave you a good overview and expectation of just all the roles. I'm sure there's more videos on YouTube where people do specific descriptions of these in depth, but if you're just kind of looking to glance over them, we hope this helped you in some way. And yeah, we hope to see you soon. I cannot talk for some reason. And we will see you next time.